Thank you so much for joining today for this quick conversation and catch up. I really appreciate your time. For those who don't know, I'm Kerry from Green Route. I'm the Director of Incentives and Travel here in Cape Town, based in Cape Town, but operating throughout the whole of Southern and East Africa. So delighted today to be talking to my longtime friend and colleague in the industry, Theo. Theo, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. Thanks very much. Good day, folks. My name's Theo. I'm the General Manager of Hospitality here at Shamwari Private Game Reserve. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you, Kerry. We go back, I'm going to give away both of our ages.
No, don't do that. Quite a few years. Oh, dear. Indeed, indeed. Well, Theo, I know this last year has been an interesting time for everybody, but certainly for us too. I think we almost experimented together doing the first, certainly for a client, virtual safari, as the world has sort of pivoted from live to virtual. And really wanted to thank you for being our amazing partner in that journey. I think we've all learned a few things as we've gone along. We've got another one this afternoon, which I'm looking forward to. So I hope the weather is playing its part today. But really wanted to ask you how difficult you found it, you and your team, in that sort of pivot to digital that COVID has brought it. I mean, we know nothing will ever replace that live experience, but what challenges did it bring, and what as a team, what challenges did you face?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. I think, look, obviously put into context of it being a very, very tough period. Obviously, lockdown started on the 27th of March last year. And then literally within a month, we realized as an industry that this is going to be, we're in it for the long haul. So we, rather than mope and wallow, we just decided to use the time constructively and proactively. And we saw an opportunity, very simply. It evolved over the course of the whole of 2020 and this year. But it started off very simply as a Zoom conversation between ourselves and clients wherever they are in the world. And then over the course of months evolved into an experience that lasted up to an hour and a half, that the audience found highly engaging and entertaining. So yeah, we saw it as an opportunity, and we just saw it as an opportunity to, rather than just approach travel trade, product training and destination training, as we always have in the past, by talking about the product and how many people and what we do. And we turned it around and created a more engaging, interactive and authentic, entertaining experience for whoever the audience was. In terms of the challenges, I don't think we actually had many challenges, to be honest, Kerry. I think the biggest problem is obviously cell phone network, and I'll talk a little bit about how we managed the Zoom calls and how they evolved. But the biggest challenge that we anticipated would have been cell phone coverage and cell signal. But as it turned out, because of our location, no matter where you are on the reserve, even though the game reserve is 25,000 hectares, there are very few places where you don't get a very strong cell signal. So we realized that the formula was very, very simply, don't make it a hard product sell and a product push. Try and make it engaging and interactive with the audience. Consider who the audience is. Sometimes it was travel trade, sometimes it was tour operators. As is with yourself, we did that one of the first safaris with all of your top clients across the UK. And each one of them was sitting at home with their families, dressed up to go on safari. So that's effectively how it evolved. But we just kept it very, very simple. We would start off each Zoom experience with a short welcome and introduction. We almost had an unwritten rule that we're not going to do any of these Zoom safaris unless there's a gin and tonic involved. Start off and welcome everyone to Shamwari, explain where we are on the map, and then mix a gin and tonic. Obviously, we took great pride in that because it's one of the things we do very well, is the whole crafted gin. We've curated a lot of really wonderful gin experiences. We would garnish using only garnishes from our kitchen garden, talk about gin, and then without further ado, just hand over to Andrew and let him take over from there. How it worked initially, that the challenge was if we had one or two rangers, and you had one ranger on one sighting and then another ranger on another sighting. There's so much you can talk. And if it's lions just sitting down, chilling in the heat of the day, you know, how do you create an engaging, entertaining experience through that? What we learned and what Andrew and the team have done is the formula is very simple. We would have, he would go out as he is for our Zoom this afternoon. He's sitting right over here. 3 or 4 hours before the Zoom, he goes out with his team. They find out where all the cool sightings are. And then just before we log on, you've got each ranger on a different sighting. Again, I would do the welcome and introduction, and then we just hand over to him and we bring our guests or our audience a variety of sightings from around the reserve. One of the challenges, obviously, is when it's hot or it's windy or it's rainy and we're battling to find animals. But that's where the team was incredibly talented, because we actually didn't need to see animals or find animals to make it interesting and engaging. I mean, I used the one example where one of the rangers sat down in a big pile of rhino dung and just spent about 20 minutes talking around how and why rhinos always defecate in the same place, and the whole
the small things that are interesting too.
So it wasn't just about the big five, it was also about the little five and the fauna, the flora, the vegetation, how we manage the reserve during a drought and things like that. So yeah, those are some of the challenges, but we managed to iron them out very quickly. Fortunately, we had a very good cell signal, which meant we were able to use these cell phones very effectively in time of the day, normally late in the afternoon. Obviously, a lot of the Zooms we did for the American market, so they were waking up and going on safari with a cup of coffee in their hand in front of their computer. But no, that's pretty much how it worked, Kerry.
Amazing.
Making sure we have good sound quality, a good camera quality, and a good cell signal. Together with the Zoom platform, that made sure we can deliver a quality experience to our audience.
Amazing. Well, I mean, Theo, we know that, you know, it's not just the amazing experience of being live on safari at a game reserve such as Shamwari. There's also important work that happens on the reserve around the community and conservation, you know, that the rangers and other sort of staff on site get involved with, you know, sort of outside of the hospitality hours, so to speak. So how has that been affected during this time when we've essentially had no guests, and has that important work been able to continue? And have the virtual safaris allowed that or helped that process in any way?
That's a very good question. The first thing I would say is it's undoubtedly helped the process, because 9 times out of 10, and this is a fact, and you know this because a few of your clients have volunteered this as well. But obviously, when we don't just go on the reserve and Andrew doesn't just show the guys amazing wildlife, we talk about the success story of that is Shamwari, the successful conservation story. We talk about the Born Free Foundation. We also showcase the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, which is an incredible facility that guests can see and experience. So the point that I'm making is, as we brought these various experiences to guests, it did touch on people's emotions. So we actually had a situation where a lot of guests were asking to donate money to anti-poaching, for example, or donate money to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center that helps nurse injured animals back so we can release them back into the wild. So that was one interesting dynamic. In terms of the rest of it, I think that's also, they are very heartwarming stories. So the story behind the wildlife rehabilitation, it really resonates with people. So it was a good way for us to unpack what Shamwari is about. So I think that was very, very beneficial. In terms of other elements of the reserve, I think what's probably been of most interest to our audience is when people watch the Zoom safaris, you can see that we've, like many other parts of the country until this last summer, have experienced quite a bad drought. So that was a topic of discussion that came up in terms of how we manage the wildlife in a private reserve when the riverbeds run dry. What happens to the hippos, for example? You know, they become very territorial, competing for limited water resources. So how do we manage that? So those are also amazing stories that the Zoom safaris gave us an opportunity to unpack. And then lastly, because it's such an engaging experience, I mean, we've done many of these Zoom safaris for schools and school kids. The questions that get asked, I mean, there's such a powerful educational angle to them. Where, I mean, we make a rule that there's no such thing as a doff question, but the questions we get asked are just incredible. And the way the rangers answer those questions is also amazing. So that was another unintended consequence of these Zoom safaris, that the educational value was almost as powerful as the educational angle. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. And just lastly, Theo, I mean, you and I, we're both hospitality people, long-time hospitality people, and I know we are desperate, like the rest of the world, to really welcome the world back in person. But and I know Shamwari particularly had built a beautiful new lodge just before the world went into lockdown, and I haven't yet seen it. So maybe do you want to just take a moment and tell everybody a little bit about it and what they can expect to see when they do arrive?
Yeah, Kerry, I guess like you and the rest of the industry, we're chomping at the bit. And at the moment, we're not doing what we're so passionate about doing, and that's welcoming people to our country and offering them our famous hospitality and service. But when it recovers, and hopefully it'll be in the last quarter of this year, I think we're very proud of the fact that by the time we had closed and locked down on 27th of March, we had literally 3 months prior to that just come to the end of a 2-year, $25 million refurbishment program at Shamwari. We had rebuilt Eagles Crag into a new spectacular lodge. We had rebuilt Riverdene Family Lodge, making it arguably one of the most breathtaking family safari destinations on the continent. We had rebuilt our Longley Manor over the course of a year, which was the flagship flagship lodge at Shamwari. And then we also built our new Sandile tented camp. So effectively, we had these 4 brand new lodges that really only operated for 3 months before lockdown. We've undergone a full repositioning of the Shamwari brand. We've introduced new food menus, new culinary experiences. We've introduced new game viewers. As I said, we've revamped our Born Free Foundation. We've built our Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. All of our chefs and staff had undergone aggressive training. And now, for the last year, we've been waiting for guests to come so we can deliver service to them. So what's waiting for them is fantastic South African and Eastern Cape hospitality, 4 breathtakingly spectacular new lodges, and passionate South Africans waiting to serve and host guests again. I mean, like you, like us, we've all had to reinvent our business over the last year, making sure we're easy to do business with. So we've revamped our terms, our conditions. You know, making a booking in the time of coronavirus is not easy. So give customers and guests the reassurance that they can get a refund or shift their bookings. So be flexible. That's also been one of the results, and that's what people can expect, I think, not just from Shamwari, but a lot of tourism businesses. But we're ready, Kerry. I mean, yeah, we've got a world-class product, and we're chomping at the bit just to have guests coming through the doors. And about our Zoom safari this afternoon, it's a breathtaking day. So, yeah, we'll bring you a good experience.